Welcome to Beyond the Riverwalk, the local weekly podcast that brings San Antonio's most remarkable people, places, and events directly to you. All links discussed will be in the show notes, so sit back, relax, and join Kevin and Melissa Barron as they ask the questions that you would. Now, let's get the conversation started.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to Beyond the Riverwalk. This is Kevin, and believe it or not, it has been quite a while since we've done a new show. First of all, I guess I got to apologize for that, but at the same time, I guess you guys all know what's going on these days. We were planning to get started again after the first of the year, and one thing led to another, and here we are now in the beginning of May 2nd, actually, is when we're recording this, and it's been a long time coming. Melissa will be joining me on the next episode we record, but today I have a special guest named Alex Ruiz. Alex is a bladesmith, we'll look into whatever other titles he's got, because he's got a few. He's also a teacher in the skills that he has, and he's local to San Antonio, and you may recognize his face, you may actually recognize his name. He's done quite a bit in the area of blacksmithing, so let's just roll straight over to Alex. Alex, you there?
Yes, I am. How are you doing?
All right. Well, thank you for being here today. You've got a great story to tell, I believe, in all the stuff that I've seen and heard about you. So why don't we just go there directly and tell us, what's your background? What do you do? How'd you get into what you do? And then we'll talk a little bit about the business that you've got, and I guess / hobby, because it started as that from what I understand.
Yes. Well, started out in 2015. I found myself with a little bit more time on my hands, and it was a transitional period for work and a few other things, and there was a bit of dead space in between, and not between work and work, but it was just I had a little bit more time on the weekends to do what I needed to do, and my background is actually archaeology. That's kind of what I've studied pretty much my entire academic life. So, I was already familiar with it, but not in the practical application. Like I was familiar enough with it, academically and from watching, actual videos of it being done, but I had no background in it myself. And, I saw a video on YouTube, and I'll credit the name, Jeff Olson. He's a blacksmith out of I want to say Michigan or Minnesota, and I can't remember which one off the top of my head. But Jeff Olson Ironworks. I saw a video on YouTube, and I saw some really cool stuff, and I said to myself, you know what? I'd like to try to make that. Needless to say, it didn't go as well as I thought it would, because it was my very first time attempting something that I would later learn was pretty difficult for a beginner.
Yeah.
But I started off with minimal tooling. I mean, I think the total of invested materials was $60-$70 worth of stuff to get started. And I still have a picture of my very first forge setup, which was as primitive and as rudimentary as it gets, but it's grown into two different shops: a home shop with everything I pretty much need, a second shop with more than everything I need, and a power hammer. And that was just between 2015 and late last year.
Wow. Okay. So when you start out with this, you said it wasn't very expensive to get started, but what are the basic tools that someone needs if they want to learn how to do this?
Yes, there's ways to go about it to be a little bit more frugal, I should say. Albeit everything that you can see other people do, you can do with minimal tooling. Granted, it takes a lot longer. Don't get me wrong. There's a reason I have a power hammer now. There's certain things that it's easier to do with that. Mostly because of the volume of orders, or maybe it's something that's really repetitive, like taking a piece of bar and just making it really, really long. I could do that by hand, but when it takes me 2 hours to do it by hand, or if I can do it with the machine, and it just makes my life easier. Also, it spares me having to go to a doctor for joint issues.
Oh, wow.
Which I think is more cost effective in the long run. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, and basically you started out.
You can start easily.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, but really, you can start off with very, very minimal tooling. My shopmate is also a Forged and Fire champion, season 2, episode 8, the Pirate Cutlass. Tobin Yetto of Stonehaven Knife Works. He's my shopmate at the other shop where we teach at for Southwest School of Arts, because we both are adjunct at that school. And he is very much about the whole minimalist approach to doing really cool stuff. And that's really his forte. I've kind of abandoned that along the way as far as what I do, because some of my stuff requires a lot more finer finishes and everything for certain types of collectors or whatever. So I have to rely on the machinery a lot more to get things done. But every so often, I just like to do stuff the old-fashioned way. I will bring out my old setup and just forge with that. And it's kind of cathartic to go back to doing it the old-fashioned way with almost no tooling whatsoever, just a hammer, the forge, and the anvil, and making stuff happen almost entirely by hand, with very few exceptions.
Yeah, and it's got to be, I mean, it's a whole lot of work. Obviously, it's intense work, but the creative piece of it sounds like it's something, from what I've seen, is something that you're really into as well, because while you make knives and you make other types of, utility items, you also make a lot of decorative ironwork, right?
Yes, I do. That was what I started with.
Oh, okay. So what was it from your background in archaeology, was it I guess the historical part of it? Is it trying to recreate some of that historical stuff, or was it just new designs that you had?
No, it was this draw to historical understanding. Like in the field of archaeology, you have stuff like experimental archaeology, which basically people in the field doing stuff as would have been done back then, to see how this works. For example,
okay.
in a group of archaeologists try to move a stone Easter Island head, not an original, but a facsimile of one with the same weight and dimensions. Try to move it with minimal tooling, just to get a sense of how this would have been done at the time the Rapa Nui people would have been doing this. So in very much the same way, I wanted to do stuff that I had seen using the same techniques, and I didn't have anyone to guide me. It was really just YouTube videos early on, and I wouldn't go to learn from someone else directly until late 2016, and that's when I met my shopmate, my friend Tobin Yetto, because I took his class at Southwest School of Art, and that was my first time. But I wish I had done it sooner.
Well, it seems to be that there's a community out there. There's a pretty tight-knit community, from what I can tell, of folks that are blacksmith, that are doing this in various different ways. Is that unique to San Antonio? Is that something that you've seen growing over time?
Oh, no. They've always kind of been around. Blacksmithing as a guild organization or a big umbrella, like the Artist Blacksmith Association of North America, has been around a very long time, bringing people together for annual events or to connect. And that's not unique. Apparently, every possible hobby has its own thing where it does stuff like that. The knife making community, however, seems a little bit more tight knit, because so many of us have been. The Forged and Fire has been on the air for a while now, and there's been hundreds of people on the show. So you kind of run into people that Like I personally have had dozens and dozens of friends who have competed, and many of them have won their respective episodes. So we all know each other and from before, like from knife shows, and then we all have that one thing that we'd all done this, and so the community kind of gets a little bit more you start to know people a little bit better through that. And that's the cool thing. Like, I when I do shows all over the U.S., I run into friends everywhere because we've either been on the show together, we've done night shows together, or we've done demonstrations somewhere together. And we kind of just, we'll pick up right where we left off if we hadn't seen each other in a year or so.
Well, I remember seeing the episode with you in it, and I'm sure a lot of people have told you this over the years, but didn't recognize the fact that you were from here. And I remember the one with the pirate cutlass also. So it's something that it's reached a lot of communities. I've never thought about doing what you do, but it's really, really interesting to me from not just from the craftsmanship standpoint, but having to understand basically how the metals interact and, how things, there's a lot of science to it from what I can tell. And it seems to be such an interesting thing. And just to back up a bit, you went on the episode, and you won the episode, took home the grand prize, and you did it by creating an axe, as I remember. What was that experience like? Yeah. I'm sure you've told a lot of folks before, but kind of give us a thumbnail of what that was.
Yes. When I competed on the show, I probably only had 16 months, maybe either a little over a year of experience as a bladesmith, blacksmith, because I was kind of making that transition into both. I was trying to branch into bladesmithing too. To be fair, I started before the show began. I started really, really, really began. So it was kind of cool that, the show started, I think maybe later that year in 2015. And I was like, wow, there's a whole show about what I'm starting on now. And so that kind of helped me want to continue. But needless to say, it was nerve-wracking because on the show it says 4 years experience. I really don't know where they got that number from. Because at that time I'd only had 16 months under my belt, and it was nerve-wracking because I had friends who had been on the show, several of whom had won already. So when I went on that set, it was like, man, I gotta represent as much.
It's a lot of pressure, yeah.
I gotta win this one. It's a lot of pressure because two really close friends had won, and some other friends in the community had won, and these are all guys that are Texas-based. So I'm like, man, I gotta do this. But that show is anyone's game. Of the smallest thing can tip the balance in that final testing. And I'm not one to say that I won by any kind of mile. By some mile, because I tell people this honestly. If what happened with my friend Mike, the guy I competed with at the very end, I think it would have been a real neck and neck kind of decision if his axe hadn't cracked right there at the junction point between the head and the shaft, because he made a really light and fast weapon. I made something that was a little bit on the heavier side because I tried another technique I'd seen on a different axe, so. I took a big gamble with the weight, but it was nerve-wracking to know that once those cameras go on, you're going to be seen all over the world. It's kind of a terrifying prospect.
Well, and then the tension of doing it in front of, I'm sure in front of the cameras, but also in front of the judges, and having to work through all the problems that pop up, I'm sure, along the way. But to me, the most tense thing every time I've ever seen the episode is that at the end, or toward the end, when they're testing these things, because it's like, you just kind of grit your teeth. It's at least from a viewer standpoint, and go, oh gosh, what's going to happen? So that had to be something. Even if you're confident in your work, you just never know, right? If you see the episode, I think I was more devastated by my friend's axe failing than he was, because he kind of just threw his hands up like, oh well, and I was devastated like it was my own. And I think that comes a lot from, I understand how much work goes into a piece like that, and I just felt for him. But he took it a lot better than I know I would have. I would have been completely devastated. I was just bad enough seeing his fail,
in front of me, whereas other people would be like, "Yeah, I'm a shoe-in now." I was like, "No, this was so nice," you know.
Oh man. Well, from that, I mean, you've basically parlayed that into a lot, and you've given back to the community a ton. One of the things that we wanted to talk about when we've connected online was an organization called STAB. So can you tell us what that is and how that fits in with the community?
Okay, so South Texas Association of Bladesmiths is the meaning of the acronym STAB, which James Helm is the one who came up with. I can't remember what episode he won. It was like season 4, episode 28 or something like that. The Katzbalker, he's out of Floresville. He came up with that title, and we kind of just rolled with it because, it's funny.
Oh, yeah.
Stab, and we make knives. But, it should be stab with another B because it's also blacksmithing because I'm there teaching.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we've offered another avenue for people to come in and take classes to learn how to do this. Because there's not that many options available that I'm aware of. There are some other makers in town that do have classes. But we're the only ones teaching at Southwest School of Art too, so, that helps with the whole credibility thing. Like, we're also adjunct there.
Yeah.
And, we've kind of diversified because Tobin handles mostly the bladesmithing classes because he's been doing this for well over 12, 13 years now. So, there's a big time difference in experience between him and I. And the blacksmithing stuff. Although I will teach private bladesmithing classes there too, but we want to offer that, up to the community for, if they're interested in doing it. We did a family reunion class with like 13 people. That was overwhelming,
Wow.
but we got it done.
So both of you at the same time?
And that was doing no.
Oh yeah, I was just saying, would
both of us teaching
okay.
and. Both of us teaching at the same time, and one of the guys who was able to get this whole family reunion event going, it was a Forged in Fire finalist in the Nambe Nulu episode. My friend Paul Brock out of Georgia, he came down with his family for a family reunion, and he said, why don't we just do this as a family? So they came in, overwhelmed our little shop. And we had a great time. But I've had kids in the class. The youngest kid I've ever had he was 5 years old. He showed up in his own little apron, his own little goggles and gloves, and I had to put the anvil on the floor because I don't have anything short enough for a toddler, essentially. Granted, his dad did most of the work, but he was really, when he had the hammer, he was really going at it. It was pretty funny to see him like go nuts trying to make this night happen with a project between him and his dad.
Well, and
it's cool to see that, father son, mother daughter, mother and son coming in to take a class and work on something together. Families, friends. We had offices come down, like an IT department, had a couple of people come down to take a class, and that was a lot of fun.
Well, and in this day and age, you hear all these people talk about online and TV and everything else. The whole issue of nobody knows how to do anything anymore. Everything is electronic. Everything is, you click a button here. Nobody knows how to make things and everything else. So it seems like this is definitely running counter to, maybe that perception. And the fact that you've got so many different people interested in it has got to be something. It's got to be pretty rewarding. So how long have you been doing those courses?
I've been at the stab shop. It's only been maybe about a year and a half now.
Okay.
Probably going on 2 years, I think. But I've been teaching since relatively early on. Once I really took to it and got the hang of stuff, I was doing simple classes from home originally.
Okay.
Started off with like little bottle opener kind of things, little decorative stuff. And that was, I want to say, late 2016, or mid 2016, I started teaching, which is kind of funny because, I'd only had so much experience under my belt at the time. And then all of a sudden I'm teaching. It's just been fun being able to get people engaged in something this intense and this personal, because it's personal with you and the work. Mm-hmm. There's no shortcut sometimes to making it look pretty, because in blacksmithing you don't rely on a grinder to clean everything up completely and make it look shiny. I mean, a lot of the work is in how well you do the work itself, and hammering it and forging it to shape. There's no cheat for that specifically. There are little ways around it, and I know my professional blacksmith friends who will probably hear this later will say, "Oh, there is a way." I'm like, "Yeah, there is," but there's only so much you can do with other tools to clean up your work versus being able to forge something cleanly and it being able to show. And that's the cool thing about teaching the blacksmithing portion of the class, is that it keeps you honest as an instructor and as a student. Because if I have a student that does a better piece than my demo piece, that says a lot about, maybe I should slow down and think about this method. You know what I mean? I've had that happen a couple of times. I had a doctor of osteopathic medicine, I believe, who was in my class not too long ago. And his finished piece looked better than the demo one I did for the class. And, it's just things like that. Your students teach you stuff.
And that's got to be pretty cool, because you never know what'll come out of it. You learn something, you're definitely teaching something, and then you never know, especially for like the 5-year-old, what's the rest of his experience going to be throughout his life? Is this a one-time thing? Probably not, if he had his own stuff. But at the same time, you never know what that creativity is going to lead to. And I think that's pretty cool. The work itself, to me, is amazing. I've looked at a lot of your stuff online, and you can go to, it's Volundr Forge, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And I'll put the links out there for that, for sure.
Volundr Forge.
Yeah, Volundr Forge. And you've got some amazing knives on there, and photos in the gallery of lots of other things that you've made. But there's also programs out there that you've done things for charitable organizations, for veterans. How has this gotten you into those communities, or to basically to support those communities? Because the two don't necessarily seem to connect. But yeah, what can you tell us about that?
So my day job, I'm the program coordinator for the Wesley Foundation of San Antonio. It's a Methodist-based nonprofit. So I'm already connected to the nonprofit world through that. And because I've been working with them for so long, I've branched out into other nonprofits in the city of San Antonio. And I've got I kind of have a mantra about, those who can should help when they can. It's kind of like it's just kind of a methodology that I have, or that if I can do something for someone else, I'll do my best to do so. And with the pieces that I'll donate to charities, I don't really keep a list. There is a list, yes, for tax purposes. There's a list of the ones that have gone out to different organizations, because they send me the paperwork back. But some of them that just seem like they don't mesh together, like a knife to support an organization that fights PTSD and veteran suicide. You would think that those two things, a knife and this, don't go together, but the knife isn't going to that. It's going to a gala or an auction to raise money for that. You know what I mean? That's where people kind of cross over, like, well, wait, this doesn't seem like it matches. I'm like, yeah, it does. I mean, I've donated to Magdalena House, which is an organization locally that supports victims of human trafficking and domestic violence. You would think that, once again, a knife does not seem to fit, but, I donate my knife to their gala every year, and it does well. So that's the thing, it's the donating to these organizations helps that way. It's not like I'm giving the weapon to someone, or the knife, you know what I mean, to a person in there, it's going to raise money for it. And that's where people kind of don't see the connection there. So I'm a really big, really, what's the word? I can't even think of the word. I'm just, my big thing is fighting human trafficking. So that's like something I will always get on the soapbox about, raising awareness for.
Yeah.
So organizations that I can work with that help stem the tide or raise awareness for it, I will do my utmost to either be present and be there actually to help, or send something that can raise money for that organization. We did a 3-way collaboration between James Helm, Ray Kirk, and myself, and that knife went to Wish House of Muskogee. It's a Women in Safe Homes, which is for domestic abuse survivors and such. And that knife went to that, and some went to the Shriners, some went to I can't even remember. A lot of them go out to a lot of different organizations, and I'm just glad that they can help in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, because it's reaching out there. We're raising funds for organizations that need it and will do good with it. And at the same time, I'm sure there are tons of collectors out there who are looking for an opportunity to find something like that, something that you make, something that's handcrafted like that, that's got, this whole history and talent behind it. But at the same time, I'd imagine it's probably not that easy to do if you're a collector. And from what I've seen, a lot of these things, because there's so much work in them, and there's so much talent, skill behind it, are not inexpensive. So when you're doing these things, it's definitely raising, serious money, I'm assuming, and I would guess, for these organizations who really could use it. One of the things that's on your website is a sword that you created and it's called the World Trade Center sword. What's the history of that? How did that come about?
We were working with an organization locally called Reforged, and we went to Grunt Style. The Grunt Style hosts its regular events, and another nonprofit was there, and they was talking about how he had material from the North Tower, and he said he would love to have it incorporated into a piece that can be displayed and passed around, or as like a display for their organization, and how they raise awareness for veteran suicide and preventing that, and just support of its first responders, veterans, etc. And he said, yeah, I would love to have this embedded in a handle. And someone kind of knew that we were there, and they jokingly said, why don't you make a sword out of it? Well, challenge accepted. My friend and I kind of turned to each other and said, we could do a canister Damascus with that if there's enough viable material. Because we made the agreement sight unseen with the material. And once we got the material, we realized we didn't have a lot to work with. And if anything went wrong, that was it. There was no, we can try again. So every step of the process was nerve-wracking. And it was a collaborative effort between so many local smiths to make this happen. We did the canisters at my friend John Thundert's place, who was a Forged in Fire finalist for the Long Messer episode. And the Reforged guys, ARCTC Knives, Alan Reed cut the knives, came down. He's a former combat medic, came down, helped us out. James Helm, Legacy uses power hammer. And then once we got the two billets sandwiched together, Tobin and I kind of did a lot of that final finishing, grinding, shaping work. I forged the shape. Tobin kind of did his part of forging it to shape and spending all night heat treating it, fixing warps because it kept warping, and we had to get it done for the 9/11 ceremony. I came in one day, did the handle shaping, and everything else got finished up by Taylor Custom Knives, Thomas Taylor. He did he did the leather sheath with the embossed letters on it and everything. And it was presented that day. The news came out. WOAI, I believe, was there. Miss Texas for America came on down. She was part of it because that's a big part of her platform is awareness for veteran suicide. So
yeah,
it was a huge event. And of course, when we presented it to Mr. Carney, who was the chapter president, he was very, very tearful because it represents so much. Of course, the blade was presented with no edges because it's meant to be a displayed piece.
mm-hmm.
But it went through the same process that any of our custom work goes through. And, it was very, very emotional to see just how people got when they saw it presented for the first time, because, it represents so much. It's one of the biggest tragedy in U.S. history.
Yeah.
And, as far as, an attack on American soil. So, it represents so much. And I've been to the World Trade Center, Ground Zero before a number of times. It's somber.
Yeah.
It's very, it takes your breath away when you think about that. And, to be part of this project it was so big for all of us that it has its own separate page on my website, just because, this was a huge effort. This isn't just, here's a picture and a little blurb.
Mm-hmm.
We are all proud of the work that we put into that, and for the organization that would take over for it.
Well, and in one of the photos, it shows the back of it. I think it looks like maybe it's on the front of the scabbard, and it has something on there called the Spartan Pledge Against Veteran Suicide. I've never heard of that or seen that before.
Yeah.
But
yes.
it talks basically about, in kind of paraphrasing, is that I won't do anything like that without talking to, it calls a battle buddy, to make sure that people are communicating, because when people are isolated, that's I'm sure one of the biggest problems here. People feel like they're alone. So that's really something I appreciate you bringing attention to as well, and I'm sure it's affected a lot of people. Just thinking of that and reading it myself, I mean, it affects me from a standpoint of just understanding that this is such a serious issue, and you hear about it sometimes, but not a lot, and probably not enough. So, yeah, thank you for doing that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we it was so much work on our part to make it happen. But we all gladly volunteered the time to make it happen. In big shout out to Tobin, who stayed up all night fixing the warps that kept on happening because the steel was so. The blade was the cross section of it had it was just the way that the blade was made. The cross section it tended to want to cant in different directions every time we tempered it, and he stayed up all night into the next day to make sure that was taken care of before the handle got put on.
Wow. And
so props to Tobin for doing that, because by the time I was done with my part of it and came in the next day for the handles and everything, I was done, but I couldn't imagine how much more done he was than I was in terms of exhaustion.
You literally put your life into it. I mean, that's very, very true, I'm sure. Oh, well, I mean, this has really been a lot of fun. How do people find more about what you're doing? How do they learn about the classes? Basically, what can you share to get people to know more about you and what you do?
Okay, well, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I have volundrforge.com. It's I think you'll put up the links there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just reach out to me. You just reach out to me on any of those platforms. They're all connected to my phone, so I'm going to read every email pretty much as quickly as possible. Albeit with the slow reopening of different businesses, we're kind of trying to wait for our turn to, see if we can open up so that we can start doing classes. Because I got a lot of requests for classes, and we want people back in the shop. We'll put down the prices and the classes, and people can just pick and choose what day they want to show up for the class, and all that is handled on my website for now until South Texas Association of Bladesmiths gets so big that we need a separate site. But for right now, we're handling it through my website directly. but yeah, just stop on in, stop on by the website, and eventually we'll be able to open up the shop for open forge nights or open house or hammer-ins, so that people who are interested can just swing on by certain days where we have an open house so people can see before getting involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a way to connect to the community that way, because what other place can you go make something like that and, come back and be like, hey, I made this, and 2 Forge and Fire champions essentially taught me how, because that's kind of to some extent, that's the draw, because, the show's still pretty popular and everything. But
it's got to be an amazing experience.
That's the best way to reach out to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and if you go to your website, it's volundrforge.com/classes. When the classes are scheduled, they'll be put up there. And in the meantime, I'd encourage people to go out there and look at it, because you got a ton of photos out there of people that have participated in the classes, some of the things they've created that'll kind of whet your appetite, I'm sure. If you're interested in this will make you even more so. And if you're not, I think you probably ought to go check it out anyway, because it's really amazing. I mean, I always kind of bump back to the creativity. I enjoy learning about how people are doing things to kind of express that creativity. But it's beyond that. I mean, it's kind of a mission from what I can hear and talking to you today, and in just seeing you've used something that you enjoy doing to reach out to a lot of different people, to make differences in people's lives, whether it's from teaching them how to do something or through these nonprofit causes. I mean, it's got to be pretty rewarding, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk today. I really do.
Yeah, and thank you for reaching out. I know it's been a bit of a scheduling snafu trying to get us both together to do this, because no one really saw the level of this coming.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I know I did. But as soon as we return to some level of normalcy, and it won't be 100% normal. It'll be a different type of normal. But we want to make sure that classes start up again. We will have, we will abide by safety measures and this new reality, just so that everyone's safe and still has fun. Because certain things shouldn't stop us from getting out, making stuff, having fun, and creating a memory. Because that's essentially what you're doing when you do this, either by yourself or with a family member or with friends. I mean, you're creating a memory. And whether or not you keep what you make, let's say you don't pass it down. Let's say that little piece gets lost. For the most part, that thing is going to outlast you and everyone else for generations and centuries, because you forged it out of steel. And under the right circumstances, that piece that you made will last pretty much forever.
Definitely.
That's cool to think about.
It really is. It really is. And it's some of the things that you've got on your shop page right now are just absolutely beautiful. And I just, again, you mentioned about Facebook. Go out there to Facebook and Instagram and look at the photos that are out there, because there's a ton of things that you've made and sold that are just, really beautiful. And you can, to me, it's something. So, for folks that are collectors, or whether you're just interested in learning this yourself, you can kind of see what someone who really knows what they're doing can do. And if you're interested in learning it, this is a great place to do it. Well, thank you again, Alex. I really appreciate the time. And I definitely would want to come out, and hopefully we can, and check out what you guys are doing when the world gets back on its feet, when hopefully that'll be soon. San Antonio, I think, has done really well through this process. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, just reach out to me and say, hey, I'd like to stop by. Come on by. We're right there on the southeast side. We're just off of 37 and Fair Avenue on the southeast side of town. We're not too far off from everyone else. So we want to be an open door for people who want to come in and learn or have the opportunity to come in. So just keep an eye out for that, and you're welcome to come on down. Just let us know.
Oh, definitely. I think that sounds like a plan. My dad is someone he works with leather and does a lot of things that to me are just amazing to see. He's made saddles and other kind of stuff. So one day when he comes to town, I'd love to take him down there. That would be fun to do as a class together. So we'll put that on the back of the list there for one day when that starts up again. But yeah, again, thank you, Alex, for doing this. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. We're really happy to be back. The new episodes are going to be coming out every couple of weeks. If we can slip a few extra ones in there, we will as well, because there's so much out there to talk about. And we're proud of our city. Even through all this stuff, we've seen the uniqueness and the mutual support of people in San Antonio has been amazing. And we're glad and happy to be part of it again through this podcast. And I'd encourage you, if you want to hear others that we've talked about, we've got a ton of other episodes out there. Whether you're hearing this on Apple Podcast or on Google Podcast or on the website, you can go to beyondtheriverwalk.com. Check us out and follow us online. And if you have show suggestions, please give us a holler as well. So for Alex, this is Kevin Barron saying thank you so much for being part of the show and listening to Beyond the Riverwalk. We'll see you around San Antonio.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond the Riverwalk. Send your comments, questions, and suggestions to podcast@beyondriverwalk.com. As always, subscriptions to our show are free and available wherever you find podcasts, as well as on our website. Until next week, join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more conversations about our community.